Shall we begin?
Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I want to speak with you about buying fish online. Some of us are very reluctant to because we've heard horror stories of dead on arrival and sent my money, never got my fish, sent me the wrong fish. We've all heard the horror stories, right? But the truth is that the majority of my fish, certainly the ones that you see in the tank here behind me, almost all of these, except perhaps for the Venusis, who's right there, was from a local fish store. The rest of them were all mail order. All the fish that you see in this tank right here, the 60-gallon grow out, the Juvie Hap Nation tank, hashtag Juvie Hap Nation, those were all mail order fish except for 2 or 3. And all the fish that you see here in the 100-gallon acrylic, the majority of these fish, except for maybe, 3 or 4, were all picked up through mail order. So as you can see, I'm a big fan of picking up fish through mail order. I've had mostly positive experiences. So I want to share with you how you can make your experience more positive when you order fish online. Before doing so though, I tapped the brains of a couple experts in the area. These are people who live, breathe, and sleep shipping fish to buyers, and their reputation and the health of their business depends on doing a high quality job. So I asked these 2 vendors a simple question. What advice would you give to somebody who's about to order fish for the first time online? And what would you tell them? What would you suggest that they look for? So let's start with my friend over in Arizona, James Largo, over at the Cichlid Shack. And remember, once you go shack, you don't go back. So James, what would you tell somebody who's about to place their first online order?
How's it going, everybody? James Largo of the Cichlid Shack here to talk to you about ordering fish online. In my opinion, the most important thing when ordering fish online is to do your research. Along with everything in the aquarium hobby, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. Email, text, ask questions. Do your due diligence. Know what you want to order. Know what that certain supplier is going to send you. Know the shipping procedures and policies. Know the cost of those things. Read the website, all the policies and procedures. Don't just expect them to be the same as everybody else's. Do your due diligence. That's the most important thing when ordering fish online. Do your research. Again, ask as many questions as you need to feel comfortable. We're always available to answer as many questions as we can. If not, we're not doing our job correctly. Thank you, Ben, for having me on your channel, and I hope that this helps everybody when ordering fish online.
So there you have it from somebody who's very knowledgeable in the industry and has been shipping for quite some time. I have another person, very expert in the area, and I want to tap their brain a little bit and see what they have to say about ordering fish online. And so the same question for you, my friend Trevor over at the Wonder of Cichlids. Trevor, what would you tell somebody who's considering picking up fish for the very first time? What would be your advice?
Wonder of Cichlids, and Ben asked me to give a small little talk about buying fish online. And I suppose I'll start with the obvious. It'd be research the seller, take availability of all the, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media outlets. These are all people that have bought fish off different sellers, and you can go onto different people's websites or their Facebook business pages and stuff like that, and you can read the reviews yourself, And the big thing is definitely research. In my experience, from when I used to buy, I always wanted talk to the supplier, just make sure that those fish were the exact fish I wanted. Because with some fish, collection points can vary, fish can be similar, a lot of the names are similar. So it's always good to be 100% before you purchase. And the other thing too is try and find out the source of the fish. Make sure that the fish are quarantined and healthy before you're getting them. You don't want to, you don't want to be in a situation where like that fish is being shipped to you on a Tuesday when it just came to the supplier on a Monday. That's just too much stress, and that's just going to end up in badly. So that would be one of the main things, like research the seller's practices. And the other thing is, watch out for pop-up sellers. I've got caught myself, trust me. And this was going back years ago, and that was mostly around the time of the forums. This pop-up seller comes up in California, offers this big, large list of fish at like amazing prices. And that time I was breeding a lot of fish, and I'm there. I put in a $2,500 order, and I'm getting excuses because the fish aren't coming in yet. The import is late, and different things like that. So eventually, my wife decided she was going to go and look at all the emails back and forth, and she looks at me. She's like, Trevor, there's no fish here, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's fish. I got blinded. I got blinded by the fish and the prices, and I forgot. Like I was like believing all these stupid excuses, and it comes out when I went onto the forums to warn people. There was another 5 or 6 people like me that handed over money, and so luckily I got my money back and others got theirs back. But at the same time, watch out for pop-up sellers. There's a few sellers there on Facebook. It hasn't been a while now, but they're over 2 to 3 years that was taking people's money, and weren't supplying fish. And the thing is, a lot of these people were warned, and they read the reviews, and they still did it. So just all it takes is like 5 minutes to Google search or go on YouTube, put the name of the company in a YouTube video or something like that, and you'll find out all you need to know about that supplier. But we're lucky in this country. We've got a lot of good online sellers, and with either Malays, Tanganyikans, even Central South American cichlids, you name it, we got it. So the best thing I can say is definitely do research, check the reviews, word them out, and stuff like that. And I just mentioned a couple of my mistakes there, and unfortunately, everybody makes them. We get blinded by the fish, we get blinded by a deal. So sometimes it's good to remember you get what you pay for. So just be vigilant, and listen, good luck with your next sale. And Ben, thank you for having me. Take care, guys.
Great point, Trevor. And I think the theme here, the recurring theme from both Trevor and James is research. Definitely do your research. Find out about the vendors, find out about their online ratings, what have people said about them. And like most things, buyer beware. Just make sure you're dealing with somebody that's reputable and doesn't have a lot of dead on arrival, or didn't refund my money, or sent me sick fish, or that kind of thing. Also look for communication. As James was talking about, communication is so important. If you're dealing with any kind of vendor that is slow to get back to you, that's never really a good sign, unless there's a legitimate excuse, like they're on vacation, off the grid, or something along those lines. My 5 tips from my experience are as follows. 1, always be sure to be ready for the delivery. And by that, what I mean is have everything ready for that fish coming in. So if you're going to be quarantining or setting up a special tank for that new arrival, be sure that it's set up and ready to go. Don't have the fish arrive at your house or be picked up from the airport, and all of a sudden you're hustling around trying to figure out how to get a tank that can actually hold this fish in the meantime while they become acclimated or quarantined. Next tip, try and find out from the vendor what they were feeding the fish, and whether it was flakes or pellets, and ideally what type of flakes or pellets, and that way you can give that fish a diet that they're familiar with, and that way they'll get their strength back a little bit faster and start to fatten up. It's not uncommon for vendors to not feed a fish for a day before they're going to be shipped. The reason being pretty obvious. You don't want that fish actually producing a lot of waste in the very small bag that they're going to be shipped in. Okay, it's a small amount of water volume. It can get polluted pretty quickly. So you want that fish to start eating when you get them. Better to find out what they're going to accept easily. So find out from the vendor what they're feeding their fish. I don't think I can stress this one enough. Be sure to quarantine. It seems sometimes like an easy or maybe sometimes a lazy skip to and just skip that step, put them right in your show tank. Take it from somebody that's learned the hard way that you should keep brand new arrivals regardless of how reputable the vendor is, because the vendor simply doesn't know what impact the stress of travel is going to have on that fish, what that might be, what that might bring the fish in the fish to the surface. It could be something as simple as parasites or something more serious. So certainly my advice is quarantine fish and quarantine them for at least 1 month. That's been my rule of thumb. And I usually don't treat or medicate fish in quarantine unless I see something that is obvious and apparent. Whether or not you do that, that's up to you. Certainly be aware of the quarantine policies of the person you're buying from. And like was mentioned by Trevor, never pick up a fish from a vendor who says it came in Monday and I can get it to you by Wednesday. That's a sure sign that that vendor is simply not quarantined and passing on whatever problem they might have gotten right on to you, the buyer. And that simply is very bad practice, business practice. Next tip is be home when the fish is going to be arriving and acclimate them quickly and smoothly. And the way you do that, of course, in my estimation, is you float them, match the temperatures, and then do the flop and drop, right, which is what I do, which is simply pour the bag out through a net into a bucket, and then you have the fish netted and put them in a dark tank with the lights out and let them chill for, maybe a day, at least overnight. Let them chill and relax, and by the next morning he'll be refreshed and recovered from his trip. All right, so next, of course, know all the policies, just like James was talking about, and so was Trevor. Know the policies of the vendor. Don't be surprised by a shipping cost or something of this nature. Don't be surprised by the refund policies of the vendor. Know those policies, be familiar with them, and that way you'll get no surprises. Okay? So those are my tips. I hope these help if you are planning on ordering fish online. Like I've said, 98% of my fish have been online, and I've been very happy with them. There have been only a couple, and that was really with one of those pop-up vendors that Trevor was talking about. Definitely avoid the pop-up vendors. Certainly comment below if you've had experience buying fish online, and let me know what your experience has been, and let me know who your trusted vendors are and what's been your experience with them. I love reading the comments. Be sure to hit that bell, become part of that convo gang, and share your knowledge with everybody else on this YouTube channel. We all learn from each other. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this helps.